Thank you for being here. I'm Valerie Lockhart, the Executive Director of the Albert Lea-Freeborn County Chamber. And today, this is another session of our Chamber Lead program. So it's Learn, Engage, Achieve, and Develop. So these are webinars that we're doing monthly just to talk about things that are topics that are relevant for our businesses and hopefully um, help you scale or grow or do whatever it is that you're looking to do for your business. So today our session is going to be about the 7 essential metrics that every business should be tracking this next year. And the goal is to really show you how it can be easy to track progress. Um, we'll talk about some of the key indicators and things that are pretty simple to track, and how you can start to see patterns in them as you track them over the year. So that's the gist. So we'll just jump right in there. First, I should ask, is everybody seeing my slides? Okay, awesome. So why do metrics matter? Um, there's a pretty famous saying that what gets measured gets improved. So if we're not paying attention to things, we have no idea if things are working or not. I mean, you have guesses, but having the actual data that you're tracking helps you have things in place that can verify maybe what your gut is saying. So the data that we're tracking should always answer questions for our business. So the main questions that you should be kind of asking, are people actually showing up? Are they actually buying? Like, we're all in business to sell things. So if you're not making money, uh, why? Are they coming back? Are you getting repeat customers? And then are you earning enough per sale? So your costs, right? Is your team or yourself, are you stretched too thin? And then where is money quietly leaking out? We get really wrapped up in sales part of it, but we don't really think about costs as much, or those sneaky costs of business that can be leaking from places where we don't catch them. So these questions are what the today's 7 metrics are kind of designed to answer. So there are these kind of 5 areas of your business, the realities of your business that exist. Um, Hopefully you have customers because you're in business. Uh, Whatever that looks like, if it's service or it's product or whatever it is that you're selling, you have customers, which means you should have revenue. And then people, who are the people on your team? Who are the people that help you deliver that service or that product? And then there's always time, because that is an aspect of it. And then cost. So knowing what the realities are of those 5 kind of groups of things helps you make better decisions in all of those realms when it comes to your business. So whether it's knowing what costs are so that you know how much revenue you have coming in versus how much cost lets you determine how much money you have to pay people. So all of these things are very intertwined. But knowing what the realities are for your business is incredibly important. So, like I said, this works in every industry. It doesn't matter uh, what business it is. Every business, regardless of the size, is going to have customers either showing up or not, sales happening or not, people doing the work, time constraints, and costs that are increasingly going up. More so these days than not. So even, solopreneurs are still going to have, there's going to be numbers in here that they're going to be able to track that can protect their time. If it's retail, it can help you determine what is actually driving profit and not just foot traffic. If you're a service provider, it can help you like figure out cash flow and reduce no-shows. Um, If it's a large corporation, these numbers help connect day-to-day activity to strategic goals. So no matter what the size company, once you see what's happening, you can make better decisions without working harder. So that's where we want to get. So these seven, we'll start with number one, which is revenue rhythm. And this one is really the heartbeat of your business. So what is the financial heartbeat? It isn't about a full profit and loss statement per se. It's really just noticing how money flows over time into the business. So honestly, most businesses don't really struggle with revenue. They struggle with unpredictability and not knowing what the timing of their money looks like. And so if you start tracking it, what you can start to see are the patterns that show you, like, even if you're not like a traditional seasonal business, every business has its seasons. And like sometimes you're going to be slower in certain times of the year and not. So this can help you kind of see uh, where the boons come in and where it's kind of ebbing out and flowing, and then can help you plan inventory, staffing. It can really help you see how you might need to beef those things up in certain times of the year and how you might need to, go leaner in other times. So for small businesses, it's helpful to just kind of look at that month to month sales. If you're a larger business and scaling, if you've been in business for longer, you can start to then compare it year over year or see what those quarterly trends are. I will say with each of these topics, there's going to be flex in here. So it's not really like, oh, I'm not a large business or I'm not a small business, so it doesn't apply. There's something in tracking these numbers for everybody. So I'm kind of categorize it as for small businesses or large businesses, but you can obviously play with these and like all of these are customizable. So it's not a one size fits all or like this size only for this group. They're just good things to know. So you can look at your month over month, asking yourself like which months feel tight and which months feel easy, and then these data points as you track through the year will help you validate that or decide to see if it's actually true. And then you don't need to control your revenue perfectly, but you do need to recognize that it does have a rhythm. And so then you can start to plan accordingly next year as you see it. Um, and then we will talk about, I have a spreadsheet that I've created that can help you track all of these. So we'll get to that at the end once we go through the seven. Any questions on revenue rhythm or like the month over month tracking? It's pretty simple. Okay. So the second one we'll talk about is customer flow. So again, this could be digital or could be physical, depending on what kind of business you have. Um, but really knowing how your customer flow is happening helps you determine what your future sales might be. So it could be foot traffic or people booking appointments, or it could be, web traffic. So maybe you're tracking analytics on your website, or so knowing how they're coming to you can help you figure out that how that interest is happening before money even exchanges hands. So when flow slows, revenue usually follows. It's the same for if the flow grows, revenue will typically follow. So it's a good indicator of your messaging, how well you're reaching people. It can be like an early warning system. So if you start to see like a sharp decline in, people contacting you through the web or coming into your store, you can usually act. It'll give you a chance to act before the sales decline follows. And so a lot of people will use customer flow as their indicator of like when they need to change something up or make go a different way with their sales or marketing. This can be the good indicator. So if, you know, revenue is the result of the customer flow, typically. This kind of brings us to the third one, which is customer retention and having repeat business. So what it's measuring is loyalty. Are you really reaching the people and giving them the kind of experience that they want to have? And repeat customers are often one of the strongest signs of a business's health. Um, it costs way more to find new customers than it does to keep existing ones. And so once you've done that hard work of getting someone to buy from you and to be in your and a partner and a customer, um, it's easier to keep them as a repeat customer than it is to get them in the first place. So retention is really telling you if people trust you enough to come back and to buy from you again. Loyal customers will spend more over time. So sometimes digging in deeper with the existing customer base that you have is more beneficial than trying to grow a customer base exponentially. Um, it stabilizes your revenue. So having good retention can help those month over month can help keep that balanced. It can help kind of smooth out any seasonal dips. And then it really reduces the pressure on you for your marketing and sales piece because you're maintaining relationships and you're kind of nurturing them versus that new gotta go get them. Um, so for businesses that aren't, you know, highly tech savvy, sometimes this is just remembering familiar faces, getting to know your customers a little bit, and small talking with them about what's happening in their life. Uh, you can also track repeating invoices, or if you start to see the same people or same companies coming back and billing. Just even making mental notes about those things can help with that retention piece. And then, of course, on the tech side, you can always use a good CRM to track like purchases and uh, calculate how many of what percentage of your customer base are repeats. And then you can start to see if if you have membership, what does your churn rate look like? Are you gaining 10 people but losing 20? Like, what are some of those numbers as you play around with your tracking? And then renewals. If you have a membership base, there should be ways to track those things within the tech. But the thing that I like to remind people about the retention piece is just that growth is not always about new customers. It's about who comes back because that can be bigger growth actually than getting new people all the time. All right. The next one, number 4, is the average transaction value. So a lot of times people will put a lot of thought into what their product pricing is. But one of the simplest ways to grow revenue without working harder is to boost your average transaction value. So this number measures how much a customer spends each time they buy from you. Small changes in this number create outsized impact over time. So even if it's just like a $5 upsell to the customer that you've already retained, that adds up very quickly. So it doesn't require more customers. It doesn't require more marketing spend. It just improves the value of each transaction that you have with the people that you're already engaging with. And so these can look like add-ons or bundles of services. Sometimes people will put together these are our most popular suggestions of a thing. Um, and then just having some kind of simple prompt at the checkout, whether it's, if you have people that are doing the checkout saying, have you considered getting this membership or having this upgrade? Um, it can be persuasive and can have that average transaction value increase over time. Um, in larger settings, this might look like tiered pricing of things. And so having, an entry level, and then if they bump up to the next one, there's a savings, or if they buy three things together, they get a cut. There's some kind of upsell, um, strategic upsells that you can do with your existing offerings. But the basic formula is to take whatever revenue you have and divide that by the number of transactions. That's how you kind of figure out what that average transaction value is. So even just a $5 increase per sale can add up really fast for giving you that overall revenue increase. All right. Number five, the lead to sale conversion. So this tells you how effective your sales process really is. And I will say this is where I know a lot of people struggle because they haven't really thought through what this whole process looks like. And a lot of times with some of the people that I've worked with in the past with coaching, this is kind of where I start and helping them figure out how people are finding them, and then what is the process that you're kind of forcing people to go through in order to get to that sale. And so this metric shows how many interested people actually become customers, and it can help separate out what are your marketing problems versus what are sales problems. So if your marketing is getting the people there, but then once they get into the sales pipeline process, where are they falling off before they actually get to that point where they make the sale? And in some examples, it'll be that you're just asking them to do too much. Um, Maybe they come to your website and they click on something and they fill out a form, and maybe it takes someone 3 days to get back to them. And by the time they've gotten back to them, they no longer want the thing. So sometimes it's a matter of timing, sometimes it's a matter of complexity, but figuring out what that lead to sale process is and how you're converting people is super important. Um, if your conversion amount is really low, like lots of people are coming but not a lot of people convert to being a customer, more leads is not going to fix the problem. So you can't throw more people in the mix and expect that to fix it. You have to figure out where the breakdown is happening, and then improving that process improves your return on investment immediately. It's a quick fix if you can get it right. So the what this looks like is maybe you're tracking how many phone calls come in versus closed jobs. Or how many inquiries come into the web versus how many people are booking. If you're using a CRM, you typically can build out a sales funnel, they call it, where someone's coming in for, signing up for a thing. They go to this next step. Someone reaches out, they have a meeting, they quote them, and then it closes. The deal closes. So in a CRM, you can kind of track that digitally. And then that even if you're not using CRM, it might be helpful to track it that way, even if it's just a spreadsheet or notes, to see if you can start identifying where those points are that people drop off. So thinking about each of the steps in your process and then figuring out where you might have a problem. Um, the really simple formula for this one is just taking your number of sales and dividing it by the number of leads. So pretty simple to figure out what your ratio is. Um, and better conversion often matters more than more traffic. So It's not about necessarily about getting more people into a broken process. All right. Number six is employee capacity and efficiency. So, this I will tell you is probably one of the most difficult things to track. Um, it, but it's important because it protects both your people and your bottom line. So, knowing how much work is getting done relative to the time and the labor that's being put in. So, even if you're a solopreneur, uh, how much work you're putting in, knowing what that is and how efficient it is can help eliminate burnout um, for any member of our team, right? So, even if we have a huge team, knowing how everyone is working, that if they're efficient or not, it doesn't mean that they're working harder. It means we have to make sure they're working smarter. So it matters because it can prevent burnout. It improves scheduling and therefore customer service. So again, if we're, um, you know, if our process is too slow or people are burnt out and they're not being efficient, that's going to leave, we're going to lose customers that way. And then this really lets you highlight bottlenecks. So what this looks like in real time is how many jobs are being completed per day per worker, or how many appointments are employees able to get to, how many orders are being fulfilled per shift. You can start to see comparatively, not that we want to compare employees, but like productivity wise, how are things, what's the norm? And then do we have examples that are falling in or out of that norm? Um, it can help you kind of identify earlier when maybe employees are struggling with things. If like they've been super productive and then all of a sudden you see a sharp drop off, like that may be an indicator that something bigger is going on with them. um, if you're in a larger company or you have uh, platforms or software that can track these things, a lot of times there will be like productivity or utilization reports. So like if you're the thing that you're selling, maybe it's a membership or it's an online subscription, you can start to see when people are using it and like figure out the efficiencies of those things. So the bottom line is when people are exhausted and results aren't improving, capacity is typically the issue. So just like looking at how the outputs and the labor hours match, and then start to see patterns of when things might not be lining up. So like I said, this one is kind of probably one of the more difficult ones to track. But if you do have, if you're tracking your number of orders and you have another system that's kind of tracking employee hours, you can start to see correlations. But again, sometimes it's so siloed that it's hard to read. So, any questions on this one specifically? Because I feel like this one can get kind of convoluted. No? Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to our last one, which are these cost hotspots. These are like typically hidden expenses that all businesses have. But it can be subscription creep, it could be increased vendor charges, and most of these cost problems don't come up suddenly. They just quietly creep in and start to add up. And if we're not paying attention, they can be super damaging. So uh, it can even be overtime, right? So like you're busy, you're asking people to do more, you're giving, they're working more. So these overtime costs, they add up really fast. So it's looking at all of your costs and figuring out where cutting costs can be helpful. So it's often easier to cut costs than it is to increase revenue. And so even small reductions can help improve that cash flow immediately. Um, this might look like there's so many, but scanning bank statements for any unused tools or subscriptions that you like maybe signed up for and forgot that is charging 20 bucks a month. Um, and then canceling those or downgrading them if you don't need as high of a subscription as you have. It could look like reviewing your vendor contracts to make sure that everything is what was agreed to, or analyzing those overtime trends and seeing kind of where things might be getting a little out of control that you hadn't noticed. So really taking some time to just look at the actual costs of your business and then figuring out if there are places that you can cut. Because before you try and earn more, you have to make sure that money isn't just leaking out in places that could be stopped. And that's an easier way to do it. So the good news is that it only takes about 10 minutes a week to actually fill in these numbers and to start tracking what is happening. Um, this is where it might look different for different businesses, and you might want to customize it. So you might want to track daily or enter numbers daily. You might want to do it monthly, and maybe there's a half an hour every month that you take to just kind of put things in and start looking at them. But no matter it's not a lot of time if you just dedicate it to do it and to look at these things. And the thing I will say, you want to use a spreadsheet. Um, Nowadays, all the tools that you can. So if you have Google, you have Google Sheets. If you have Microsoft, you have Excel. Both of those tools have AI built into them now. And so use a spreadsheet. You can very easily and quickly analyze your numbers using the AI. So you don't even have to know how to create a V lookup or a pivot table or any of those things anymore with spreadsheets. You can literally just, there's a little tab on the side and you can ask the AI to help you analyze your numbers. Like what does my cost over time look like? It can do some analysis for me with you. It can even like create a chart that like shows you what that looks like visually. And so if you have a board of directors or you have a team that you're working with, you can create visuals to kind of show them what this data is telling you from your spreadsheet. So I will, let's see. Oh, some of the things that you can pull out using AI. You can start to see like if you're tracking daily, like tracking numbers daily, what are your slowest days? So is Wednesday, maybe you like have to shift people's hours or run a promo during that time. Um, Maybe you start to see like with that additional value, if you did an upsell of $5 for something, you can start to see how much revenue that increased over the 6 months. Um, or you can start to see how your subscription costs have gone up over time and what you might need to cut. So it just helps you analyze those patterns. As humans, we can do this. Like we can start to see these things. We know in our guts what is happening or think what's happening. But these numbers and using the AI is so much faster than we are at seeing what those patterns are, that it just it knocks the time out for us of analyzing it. So the most consistent thing, or the thing that I want to remind you is like we don't have to be perfect, but consistency, putting the numbers in and being able to look at them is really the biggest thing. So let's look. I will send this to everyone too. But let me just show you this really simple um, spreadsheet. So right now, the way I have this one broken down, and you can make a copy of this and kind of customize it for your own use. But I just have it week over week. So we have 52 weeks down the side. And then what was the revenue, customer visits or appointments or leads. There's 10 things in this spreadsheet that you're basically tracking that give you some combination of these numbers give you those 7 metrics. So we have revenue, customer flow, how many people are repeat, what's our average transaction value, how many leads, how many sales, what's our conversion rate, so those things divided. Um, this one is a little trickier to track because this is capacity, right? So this is maybe some notes about uh, things that we're noticing or things that we're seeing. And so this we can track labor hours and then notes about hotspots. So this, however you want to set your spreadsheet up, is 100% up to you. You know your business, you know exactly what these things are for your, this is very generic. Um, but you, as long as you have some spreadsheet that you're using to track it. And then for those of you who do use Google, you can see this little kind of star shape up in the corner. If you click on this, this little uh, kind of prompt box will open, and you can start to ask Gemini, which is the AI that's built into Google, you can start to ask it questions about the data that's in your spreadsheet. So once you have some things in here, you could ask it to visualize a certain number. You could ask it, anything you want to ask it, and it will help you start to kind of work with that data and start to see what those patterns are. So this is how you get to it in Google. Microsoft has Copilot, which is exactly the same. So for your Excel sheets, you can click on the Copilot icon and then do the same thing and start asking it questions. So I, you know, I love AI. uh, there's some safety around it, which we can get into a little bit. If you're using Google or Microsoft, the idea is that um, your business information is protected within that platform. And so anything that you're asking it to look at through the spreadsheet should be still, contained in your intellectual property and in your organization. Where that doesn't hold true is if you export things, like pull down the spreadsheet and upload it into like Chat GPT or Claude or one of the other AI large language models, then your information is not as protected because it's kind of open to training and it's open to the Wild West. So just one thing to keep in mind as you're using AI, there's more protection in using tools within the platform than these public large language models. So that's a whole separate topic that we could spend an hour talking about, but just as a kind of a warning, try not to take any personal or private or proprietary information from your company and put it into Chat GPT or any of the more public facing large language models. It's not good practice. So again, I would love to share this share this really rough outline with you guys, very general. And then you could change this to days of, daily. So you could have 365 days. Um, really, it just depends on how you want to use it, what's more helpful for you in your business. But getting a general idea of these numbers will help you really understand what is going on with your business. So let me see here. Let me move you. Sorry. All my controls are in my way. All right. So who has questions? Do we have any questions at all? Me. Actually, I'm going to just stop sharing so I can see you.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Clara.
Oh, I was just gonna thank you. Like I having you mentioning the AI in the platform and how
Yeah.
we can. I've been working on um, my Excel sheet for all of my expenses, and
Yeah.
I'm just so and such an amateur at everything I'm doing, and being able to do that, I'm like, oh, okay, there's some help there. So
Yeah. And
I just wanted to thank you like that.
yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
get
no, you're welcome. The one thing I will say, you need to be able to verify. So with AI, there's this thing called hallucination, which is where it will make up some things and it's very convincing and it sounds like it's right and it's not. So you will need to, and you can ask it, what sources are you pulling this from? Or like, what information are you looking at that brought you to that answer? And then you can gut check it and say like, does that make sense to me? And is it legit? So double check everything, but it is a time saver because I'll say 8 times out of 10 it's correct. So but there's still those 2 times where you might need to like re-verify numbers that it's crunching.
it's more so for me, it's more so the idea of getting it set up properly.
Yeah.
That's
Yep. And
my
that can
big,
help a
yeah,
lot.
which they
Yep.
can't go wrong.
Yep.
So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. But like having them do the numbers and stuff, yeah, that's great too. If
Yep.
they can teach me how to, I know they're in the Excel, it can tell you, you take, you can, it explain, there's a way you can highlight all these, and then at the bottom it'll tell you the sum number of all those.
Yep.
I don't know how to do all of that, but I know it's possible
Yep.
that
Yep. Absolutely.
AI will be able to help me go through that.
Yep. Sue, what was your question?
So I want to thank you also for having this because I feel like that's something that we've been missing with our chamber is more of these sort of lunch and learn and things like that. But I'm on several boards and
Yeah.
we've had, for instance, at one of the boards, we've had some consultants, or maybe that's not the right word, but they've come and they're like, at every board meeting, you should look at these five most important, metrics. And I'm like,
Metrics.
yeah, what are those? Like net operating income, obviously, like we need to know our
Yeah.
financials, but do you know sort of what are those things that we should absolutely be looking at every meeting?
I think it depends on what the board's purposes are. So, or what the organization's purpose is. So if it's, um, maybe if it's number of people reaching out or connecting with you, it's kind of the same as the seven that we've kind of talked through. Because even if we're in the nonprofit space, we're still a business. Like we're still operating. There is still financials. There's still engagement. Um, there's still transactions that we're making. It may not be monetary as much. You have the fundraising piece and the donations, but there's still some kind of transaction that's happening between you and your customer. And so looking at it, what is maybe it's like satisfaction rating. I know some boards will do like a net promoter score as like one of the indicators that they track. So how are people rating after they have an engagement with your organization? Are they satisfied? Are they not? Like how many complaints have you had? Like maybe some of those things might start to be numbers that you would track over time just to see what the health of the organization is. Um, Again, it just depends on we go back to that very first slide, which I don't think you were here for, but like what gets measured gets improved. And so if there are things that you're really looking to make changes for the organization, whether it's sales or it's, happiness of customers or whatever it is, just starting to see where the realities lie and then where it changes over time and how if you try something, what that impact has on the numbers. If we don't track it, it's all a guessing game and we can just kind of make stuff up and it feels good, but is it actually having the impacts that we want it to have? So I hope that answers your question, but I think it just depends on really what you want to be, what kind of impacts you're actually looking to make. And it's hard to have boards tracking those things. It's difficult because you're dealing with volunteers usually who aren't really involved in the day to day, but they want to have that pulse of things. So it can be difficult to figure out what the actual things to be tracking are because everybody will have a different opinion of what that is. But yeah, finding some general consensus is helpful of what the indicators are. Any other questions? Any other specifics that anybody wants to talk through? I hope this has been helpful.
I'm with Sue on this. I feel like you could offer these monthly, you could have a whole one on just AI and spreadsheets.
Yeah, absolutely. And we probably will. We,
Just
we
'cause
probably will.
there's a lot to learn, and I think a lot of us have many hats, and we have training in this thing, but we also have to do
Yes.
research in this, and so to get some
Yeah.
on some of this other stuff that we end up doing, very helpful.
Yeah. If you all have ideas for things that you want to dig into and that, just send me an email. Shoot me a note of what types of things you'd like to dig into. But I know like talking more about like how AI can come into some of these things, that's where I geek out. So I would love to share more of that with everybody. And yeah, if there are certain use cases or things that you want to figure out how to do, I'm more than happy to dig in and try to do it with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, I will send the link to that spreadsheet. Like I said, you can just make a copy of it and start to tweak it if that's helpful. If not, like you said, Clara, ask AI to help you make one that can track the things that you want to track for your businesses. And as always, if you want to talk more about it or have other questions that come up after today, please just send me an email or text me if you had. But I will send my slides to you all so you have that reminder, and then you'll have the link to the spreadsheet and all that, and my email will be in there too. So
We will see you on Wednesday, I think.
yeah, yep, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a good day, everybody.